Our empire has surveyed 912 intelligent species across 4 spiral arms, and not once have we found a civilization as laughably clumsy as the bipeds of Sol 3. They call themselves humans, though the title seems misplaced. Accident-prone apes will be more accurate. Their social records are filled with collisions, fires, explosions, wars, and absurd contraptions powered by volatile liquid they call gasoline. They live surrounded by wires and glowing screens. Yet half the time those screens report only the weather, which they still manage to mispredict. Their language includes small symbols, emojis, that convey complex emotions such as joy by depicting a yellow circle with crude lines for a face. Entire governments have been swayed by these images. My colleagues and I were instructed to treat them as a research opportunity, not a threat. I admit I felt relief at the assignment. Our prior missions involved species with genuine defenses, acidic clouds, telepathic resistance, planetary railguns. Earth promised nothing more than loud entertainment shows they classify as reality television and curious culinary habits centered on processed meat stacked in buns. One could hardly imagine a more harmless subject. Indeed, among my peers, the Earth mission became something of a joke. A few officers bet rations on whether the creatures would beg for mercy upon first contact or faint outright. When command informed me that we were to abduct a lone specimen for study, I felt almost insulted. Why abduct what could easily be bribed with a handful of colorful rocks or distracted with a glowing screen? Still, procedure demanded subtlety. We scouted locations where humans wandered alone, often in an activity they quaintly call camping. Imagine, by choice, leaving climate-controlled shelters to sleep inside thin fabric surrounded by biting insects. Their masochism never fails to amuse. It was during one of these excursions that we located our target. Male, mid-30s by Earth measure, sitting by a riverbank with a simple fire crackling at his feet. He wore cloth designed with a pattern meant to mimic foliage, as if blending into the wilderness were his intent. Yet the foolishness of his camouflage was evident. He sang softly to himself, a tune without elegance, occasionally punctuated by bites of something wrapped in foil. Later I learned these are called burritos, food heated in a device they call a microwave, an appliance so poorly designed it is more radiation cannon than cooker. This was their sustenance, I thought, and nearly laughed aloud. I led the retrieval team with confidence. Our paralysis beam, refined across centuries, swept across the clearing. He stiffened, dropped his meal into the dirt, and collapsed silently. There was no cry, no plea, only the thud of flesh meeting soil. We approached without caution, for what caution was needed. He was restrained, unconscious, and utterly ordinary. The guard secured his limbs with magnetic cuffs, while the medic muttered about contamination protocols. I considered such concerns excessive. The only contagion he might spread was grease from his primitive food. Still, there was an odd quality to his expression. His eyes, half closed, did not flutter in panic, but seemed almost tranquil, as if the paralysis were a familiar sensation. I dismissed the thought quickly. Humans practiced odd rituals. Perhaps this was merely one more. We transported him aboard with routine efficiency. I dictated notes into the recorder, indulging in sarcasm to amuse the analysts back home. Subject appears average in form and function. Exhibits dependence on fire for warmth and sustenance. Appears unable to distinguish between edible and toxic material, as evidenced by ingestion of foil-wrapped food substance. The medic chuckled, the guard smirked. None of us felt the faintest flicker of threat. Inside the containment chamber, we laid him on the examination platform. The lights adjusted to a sterile blue. Monitors hummed, scanners aligned. I prepare my introductory assessment. Cardiovascular rhythms, neural responses, the expected cataloging of primitive biology. Then something curious occurred. His eyelids twitched, not with random motion, but with deliberation. The medic adjusted the dosage of paralysis field, assuming equipment error. Yet instead of slackness, the human's mouth curved into the faintest smile. I felt irritation more than alarm. Increase suppression, I ordered. The medic complied. The readings flattened. Still, the smile remained, as though he mocked us even in helplessness. I reminded myself that humans often display involuntary gestures, laughter at inappropriate times, grimaces mistaken for friendliness. It was undoubtedly meaningless. Yet, as I dictated observations, my gaze kept drifting back to that expression. There was composure in it, not confusion. For reasons I could not articulate, I ended the session early. Let him rest, I told the team. We begin full cognitive mapping at next cycle. The guard secured restraints twice over, muttering that the subject looked too calm for comfort. I mocked him for superstition. Would you fear a child because it naps without thrashing? He did not answer. Before departing, I looked once more at the human. His eyes were closed, his breathing steady. Still, that smile lingered faintly, as if he knew something we did not. I dismissed the unease as fatigue. After all, what could he know? He was only a man from a forest, eating foil-wrapped food, unaware he had been chosen as a specimen for the galaxy's most advanced empire. I returned to my quarters with satisfaction, certain the mission would be straightforward. Another record to file, another primitive cataloged. Yet as I sealed the report and prepared for rest, a phrase from their crude digital archives drifted into memory. Florida man, they call it, a shorthand for their most bizarre, reckless, inexplicable behaviors. We studied those reports with amusement, convinced they represented anomalies rather than norms. I laughed softly, recalling them now. Surely the being on my table was not one of those anomalies. Surely he was harmless. And yet, as the chamber lights dimmed to night cycle, I could not dismiss the sensation that his smile had been deliberate, not reflex. My arrogance insisted otherwise. My logic clung to protocol. But somewhere behind both, a sliver of unease stirred, whispering that perhaps we had not captured a specimen at all. Perhaps something else had entered our ship, wearing the shape of a man, waiting. The paralysis field was designed with precision honed over centuries. No specimen had ever escaped its slow dissolve. Yet the human's body stirred earlier than the schedule permitted. His eyes opened in full lucidity, not the groggy flutter of a stunned animal. For a moment, silence occupied the chamber like an intruder. My assistants froze, waiting for screams, for frantic questions, for the inevitable breakdown. But none arrived. He simply lay there, surveying the room as though he had just returned from a pleasant nap. Then came the smile. I have cataloged countless expressions. The snarls of predators, the slack mouths of prey, the ritual grimaces of diplomatic species. But this smile unsettled me. It carried neither fear nor bravado, only recognition, an acknowledgement of the situation without even a hint of surprise. I told myself it was reflexive, meaningless. Yet my throat tightened all the same. Commence queries. I ordered, my tone clipped. An assistant activated the translator grid. Our opening protocol was designed to assess cognitive coherence. We expected disorientation. Instead, he spoke first. "Morning," he said, as though greeting neighbors at a campground. His voice was calm, measured, devoid of strain. He tilted his head slightly, as though listening to the hum of the reactor. "Nice ship you've got. Little drafty on the starboard stabilizer, though." My secondary heart stuttered. He should not have known such terms. He should not even have perceived the stabilizer's vibration. I masked unease with derision. Primitive mimicry, I declared for the log. Likely repetition of environmental noise. But even as I spoke, his gaze shifted precisely to the technician monitoring that very stabilizer. He asked a question before we could pose ours. "So, which of you's the medic? Which one's a muscle? And which one's in charge of keeping the lights from flickering?" His eyes swept across us, landing on each in turn. "You," he pointed with a glance toward my assistant, "have the posture of someone who's cleaned too many scalpels. You," his gaze slid to the guard, "watch the exits more than the subject. And you," now he fixed on me, "you haven't blinked in a while." Commanders never do when they're trying too hard to look commanding. His accuracy was unsettling. My assistants exchanged nervous glances, the subtle flutter of frills betraying unease. I tried to regain dominance. "Your deductions are amusing. Do not mistake coincidence for insight. But he leaned back, still partially restrained, and said, I was awake for most of the ride up here. Long acceleration curves. Whole resonance told me more than you realize. You folks need better dampeners. I felt my throat constrict. He should not have been conscious. The paralysis field ensured sensory blackout. I insisted to myself that he fabricated the claim. Yet his detail of the whole resonance was precise, too precise for guessing. The guard shifted uneasily. The human's eyes flicked toward him. You've been nervous since I opened my eyes, he said casually. I get it. You're the one who worries about things going wrong. Smart. Worry keeps you alive. I interjected sharply. You will answer our questions, not pose your own. He ignored the command. Funny thing about being paralyzed, he continued, is you still get to think. You still notice rhythms. Your engines, for example, they cycle just off true harmonic. That means you're masking something. Reactor strain? Or are you hiding emissions? The chamber chilled despite stable temperature. My assistant typed frantic annotations, trying to reduce his words to nonsense. I recognized the truth. He was analyzing us with the same detached calm we had expected to deploy upon him. We advanced to formal interrogation. Identify yourself, I said with rehearsed authority. Name's irrelevant, he replied. But if you're filing paperwork, you can jot me down as a curious camper who took the wrong hike. His smile sharpened just slightly. And you are explorers? Or hunters? He was baiting me. I remained silent, unwilling to give him satisfaction. He filled the void himself. Explorers, then. That's what you call yourselves. But you're nervous about me, which tells me you've had surprises before. The translator grid processed his tone, and in it I heard the echo of something I could not classify. Confidence wrapped in humor, humor hiding calculation. My arrogance faltered, but I clung to procedure. You will undergo testing. Compliance is mandatory. Testing's fine, he said, as though agreeing to a medical checkup. Just let me know which of your cameras are actually working. Some of them seem to be lagging. For example, the one above my left shoulder, that clock is 2 seconds behind. We followed his gaze. The display confirmed it. A minor lag, trivial but real. None of us had noticed. He had. He leaned slightly, just enough to force the angle of reflection from his thermos to blind that lens for half a beat. The act was casual, unconscious, yet deliberate. He should not know this, whispered the medic. I silenced him with a glare. We shifted to cognitive patterning. Repeat after me, my assistant commanded, offering symbols. The human complied, but each repetition contained a subtle variation, as if mocking the process. Asked to identify fear, he replied with, Does your ship get cable? None of us understood. His grin widened at our confusion. I pressed harder. Your humor is irrelevant. We will have discipline. His response was a wink. Chuck Norris, he said. The translator rendered only nonsense. Yet his inflection carried weight, as though invoking a legend. I dismissed it aloud, but felt unease coil deeper. At intervals, his eyes tracked seams in the walls, corners of the ceiling, air vents no one else ever noticed. He was mapping us, not with instruments, but with a sniper's patience. I had read of hunters in other systems, predators who survive by stillness and observation. Yet none matched this unsettling calm. I attempted to reassert dominance through protocol. We are your superiors. You will learn your place. For the first time, his smile thinned into something sharper. That's the thing about places, he said. Sometimes you don't realize who's visiting whom. The guard's frills twitched with alarm. My own breath came shallow, yet I forced steadiness. Specimen displays delusional confidence. I dictated. Proceed with deeper scans. He seemed almost amused by my words. Deeper scans, huh? Be careful. Last time someone tried poking too deep, they wound up showing me things I wasn't supposed to see. I've been analyzing your tech since the moment you switched the lights on. It was not a boast. It was a statement of fact. Then came the sentence that cleaved certainty from arrogance. He leaned slightly forward, still restrained, and spoke in a voice almost kind. You really should replace the batteries in your door. Wouldn't want them to give out at the wrong time. We turned instinctively toward the chamber exit. Its indicator light dimmed a fraction, exactly as he had suggested. A trivial malfunction, perhaps, but the duct tape fragment still bridged the sensor beneath his gurney. A detail we had dismissed. A detail he had already turned into a lever. For the first time, I felt genuine fear. The session was meant to measure him, but he had measured us. Every word he spoke, every glance he cast, revealed that the line between subject and observer was not only blurred, it had been reversed. The smile returned, faint and deliberate. He reclined against the gurney as though satisfied with an opening move. "So," he said, "shall we continue?" And in that moment, I knew the game had begun, though none of us yet understood the rules. The testing chamber became less a laboratory and more a stage, though none of us acknowledged it aloud. He sat upon the gurney, restraint still in place. Yet every movement of his eyes suggested he was the director and we were the actors fumbling through a poorly rehearsed script. I told myself that control remained in my grasp, that he was merely a specimen producing unpredictable but ultimately harmless behavior. Yet the fracture lines in my certainty widened with each passing exchange. We began with reflex analysis. The medic displayed a pattern of lights intended to measure delay. The human's response was flawless, too flawless. Each signal was acknowledged at the precise interval necessary to appear authentic, never late, never early. My instruments indicated perfection, and perfection, paradoxically, meant deception. He was not reacting, he was predicting. I scribbled into the log. Subject demonstrates anticipatory mimicry, highly unusual. In truth, I feared what the note implied. He broke the silence with another question, casual as if asking about the weather. "So how many decks does this ship have?" "Judging by the air cycles, I'd guess 7, maybe 8 if you've hidden a maintenance bay." His eyes gleamed with quiet amusement. I barked a denial before my assistants could confirm or refute it, but the flicker across their frills betrayed the truth. He smiled knowingly. "Thought so. The airflow between levels isn't consistent. You might want to fix that." Every word became a scalpel, peeling away our illusions of superiority. I tried to reclaim the narrative with a sardonic jab. "You imagine yourself clever, but your deductions are nothing more than guesses." "Guesses," he replied softly, "don't usually make people this nervous." My pulse betrayed me, thundering in my chest. The medic, in an effort to regain control, initiated the neural scan. The headpiece descended with a hum, bathing his skull in cobalt light. Waves of energy rippled through his cortex, translating thought into patterns. We expected crude signals. Instead, the machine faltered. His brainwave activity was chaotic, dense, layered upon itself, as though several minds occupied the same skull. Yet even within the chaos was rhythm. He anticipated the scanner's pulse and adjusted his thoughts to match. The machine began to misfire, projecting fragments of data back into itself. "Impossible," the medic whispered. "He is influencing the scanner." I tried to sound confident. "Artifact. Malfunction. Nothing more." Yet even I could hear the hollowness. The human opened one eye and smirked. "You're feeding me your operating patterns. Appreciate the courtesy." The medic shut the machine off in panic. Silence weighed upon us. I attempted to salvage composure. "Explain your skill. No human brain should produce such readings." He leaned his head back, unbothered. "I used to work in the military. Sniper division. Later, I moved into security testing. My job was simple. Find cracks before anyone else did. People think sniping is about pulling a trigger. Really, it's about patience, observation, predicting, waiting for systems to betray themselves." The word hung heavy in the chamber. Sniper. We had dismissed humans as clumsy bipeds, creatures who tripped over their own inventions. Yet before us sat a hunter trained to turn stillness into dominance. The guard stepped forward, agitated. "You claim skills, but you are restrained. You are powerless here." The human tilted his head, regarding the guard with pity. "You think power is about movement. It isn't. It's about control. Right now, you're the ones trapped with me." The silence that followed was unbearable. I tried to end it with authority. "You exaggerate your importance. You are a single primitive creature. Nothing more." His response was quiet, but it sliced deeper than any roar. I've already sent a message. Every frill in the room stiffened. My voice cracked despite effort. Explain. He smiled faintly. During your scans, you opened a door. Light, sound, frequency, doesn't matter what you call it. I only needed a sliver. Your own systems carry the rest. The medic checked consoles in frantic denial. Nothing obvious was amiss, but small anomalies crept across displays. Minor timing shifts, redundant loops in the AI's housekeeping routines, harmless on the surface. Yet I knew, deep down, there were seeds he had planted. I accused him of bluffing, demanded proof. He gave it freely. Your ventilation system recycles every 83 seconds. The sound it makes is 3 notes, rising, but just now it played 4. That was me. We listened. And indeed, the hum carried an unfamiliar extra tone, subtle yet undeniable. The guard cursed under his breath. The human leaned forward slightly, his restraints creaking. That's not a weapon, just a message. A handshake with your machine. I'm not here to burn your ship down. Not unless you give me reason. I try to dismiss him with sarcasm. Your duct tape and campfire tricks do not threaten interstellar craft. His laugh was low, unnervingly warm. Duct tape is hope. It fixes what breaks, bridges what shouldn't connect, buys time when you're out of it. I've seen whole operations saved by a strip of tape, and I've already shown you what one little piece can do. We all glanced at the gurney's underside, where that forgotten strip clung, bridging sensors in ways none of us fully understood. Our ignorance had become his playground. I struggled to maintain the mask of superiority. Even if you tamper with trivial systems, you cannot threaten the fleet. Earth is primitive, defenseless. He looked at me then, truly looked, and for the first time I felt stripped bare. You've been watching us for a while, haven't you? Ever wonder why we let you? Why we play dumb? The question hollowed the air. None of us answered. He continued, voice steady. We learned long ago that predators leave the supposedly weak alone. So we acted weak. But some of us were trained to prepare for the day we'd need to show teeth. The guard took a step back. The medic's hands trembled over the console. I felt my arrogance unravel thread by thread. He spoke once more, voice almost gentle. You've mistaken patience for ignorance. You've mistaken silence for stupidity. You've mistaken duct tape for trash. None of those are mistakes I make. I ended the session abruptly, ordering his restraints reinforced, his cell sealed, his every move monitored. Yet even as the doors locked behind me, the echo of his words clung to my mind. A message had been sent, though we could not detect it. A predator sat bound before us, though the bindings meant nothing. And the realization gnawed at me. Perhaps Earth was never the prey we imagined. The chamber lights dimmed on my command, but in the lingering darkness his smile burned brighter than any star. The chamber darkened not because I willed it, but because the ship itself stuttered. Consoles flickered, monitors reset, and the comfortable hum of the reactor shifted half a tone lower. I felt the change like a knot in my chest. The guard reached for his weapon, though there was no threat he could strike. The medic pressed the controls that no longer obeyed, and upon the gurney, still half-bound, the human only watched, his expression a mask of calm amusement. We had built our technology to be incorruptible. Redundant systems nested inside redundant systems. Fail-safes guarded every core, yet lights pulsed irregularly, like the breath of something sleeping uneasily. Artifact, I told myself again, though the word felt empty. He had warned us in that infuriatingly patient tone. I've already sent a message. Doors hissed shut one by one, not in sequence but in chaos, as though the ship itself could not decide which compartments should remain accessible. My comms crackled, then failed. Only static. The guard attempted a manual override. The panel rejected him with a mocking chirp. We were sealed in with him. Lockdown protocol engaged. The ship's AI announced, its voice disturbingly cheerful. Contamination risk identified. Quarantine commencing. The medic's frills paled. Contamination? What contamination? The human tilted his head toward the ceiling, as if speaking directly to the voice. Good work. Now separate the rooms. Safety first. Doors slammed elsewhere in the vessel. My crew began shouting through the comms network, but their voices overlapped and dissolved into distortion. One by one, they fell silent. The AI had isolated us, but not on its own initiative. He had whispered to it through patterns, through frequencies we dismissed as noise. He had claimed the system as his ally. I turned on him, rage masking fear. "What have you done?" He shrugged lightly. "Just housekeeping. You left too many doors unlocked." I closed them. "This is sabotage." Sabotage would be making the engines tear themselves apart. "I'm not doing that. I'm keeping everyone alive." "You're welcome." Every word struck with infuriating calmness. The medic whispered a question none of us wished to voice. How could a primitive mind instruct an AI of our design? The human answered before I could deflect. "Machines don't care about species. They care about input. Your scanning beam, let me see the rhythms. And rhythms are just another language." I spoke back. I remembered the brainwave patterns, the way he had matched the scanner's frequency, shaping thought like a musician bending notes. He had not resisted the machine. He had played it. The guard raised his weapon, but even he knew it was meaningless. Firing upon a restrained subject would be humiliation, not victory. "Why?" he demanded. "Why twist our systems against us?" The human's gaze softened, as if he pitted us. "Because you assumed weakness was truth. Because you thought we were blind while we were watching. And because I need you to understand before you make the mistake of pushing further into our skies." My arrogance rebelled. "Your world is primitive. You cannot withstand fleets. You cannot resist armadas." He leaned forward, chains creaking, eyes steady. "You think fleets are what matter. They're not. It's patience. It's listening. Do you know how many satellites you've missed because you weren't listening carefully enough? Do you know how many of your probes were tagged and filed away by people you thought had never looked up?" The medic hissed disbelief, but I felt the truth in my marrow. Our last 3 stealth launches had vanished without explanation. We blamed accidents, debris, miscalculations. Perhaps Earth had collected them like trophies. He continued, each word a quiet hammer. "We've hidden things where you wouldn't expect, behind junk, inside the noise, cloaked by your own arrogance. You came here thinking you'd find prey. What you found was patience wearing a smile." I wanted to deny him, to shout, to claim superiority, but the ship betrayed me. The AI's voice returned, now disturbingly warm. "Maintenance complete. New priority protocols established." The guard staggered back. The medic stared at me for direction, but I had none to give. The system we trusted no longer listened to us. It listened to him. He stretched his shoulders against the restraints, not straining but testing, confident they would eventually fall away. "I don't want your ship," he said. "I don't want your war. I want you to go home and think very carefully about the species you almost underestimated into extinction." The guard muttered, "Extinction? You threaten us." The human shook his head. "No, I remind you, predators that overhunt starve themselves. You don't want Earth to be the reason your empire starts running out of breath." Silence pressed against us harder than any weapon. For the first time in my career, I did not see a specimen, a curiosity, or even an enemy. I saw inevitability, a world that pretended clumsiness until the right moment to reveal precision sharper than any blade. I lowered my voice, almost reverent. "Why tell us at all? Why not destroy us if you are capable?" His eyes flicked to the ceiling cameras, then back to me. "Because destruction teaches nothing. Fear, though, fear lasts. And you'll carry this story back with you. That's enough." The ship groaned as power redistributed. The doors unlocked with a hiss. My comms crackled back to life, carrying terrified reports from separated crew. They begged for instruction. I had none to give. I only stared at the man before me, a human who had shifted from specimen to teacher, from captive to captor, without moving more than his lips and his eyes. He leaned back, sighing as though the performance bored him now. "I'll leave it to you to decide whether you ever want to return. But if you do, don't bother pretending you're hunters. We've already seen you coming." The guard stepped forward, unsure if the moment called for violence or retreat. I raised a hand to halt him. For the first time, I understood restraint. We had not captured him. We had summoned him. The AI dimmed the lights gently, almost respectfully. Containment terminated, it said. And then, chillingly, in the human's own cadence. Maintenance complete. I staggered backward. My arrogance dissolved into something raw and unsteady. Respect, yes. Terror, more. A lesson carved into bone. Primitive is only a word used by the arrogant until reality humbles them. When I finally dismissed the crew and sealed my report, I did not title it as protocol demanded. I wrote only one line. We thought we were hunters. We were the noise. And still, when I close my eyes, I see his smile. Calm, patient, inevitable. Waiting in the dark like a predator disguised as prey.